Reverend Dr. Janet Childs, and it's my pleasure and privilege to welcome you to our Universal Church of the Master Speakers Series. And we have these series once a month via Zoom, and we have different incredible wisdom keepers, and wonderful people to guide us on the way on our spiritual journey. And I am so pleased and privileged to introduce Reverend Dr. Richard Jelusich. We call him Dr. J, who is going to talk to us about beings as topos, what our empowered spirit can bring to the world, what our empowered spirit can bring to the community we serve, and to the world energy, and to the universal energy. And I'm not going to tell you too much about it because I want you to stay on and be surprised and awakened. But I will tell you a little bit about Dr. J. He's an amazing healer and has actually trained people how to heal, both spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. He has an incredible practice in terms of spiritual wisdom that he has gained both through his own process and his own spiritual development and what he shares with others. He is renowned worldwide, and we are so fortunate to have him here. The most important thing I want you to know about Richard is that he brings his full heart, his full energy, with such compassion and with such humility. He's one of the warmest, most caring people I know. He is a gift to our world. And as we get started, we have a tradition at our speakers series, and that is to light the candle. And the candle is simply the symbol of hope and healing that we can bring for and with each other as we share our wisdom, our light, and our energy. Is it all right with everyone if I light the candle? Would that be okay?
Yes, beautiful. Thank you.
And I'll just lead us in just a short little quieting down and meditation as we light the candle. We light this candle for our hearts, for our souls. We light this candle for each other and for ourselves. May the light reach out to every corner, to every moment and every dream, and may we hold it in our hearts with step by step to our very being. Welcome, welcome, Dr. J. Welcome to today. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Dr. Janet, for that amazing meditation and introduction. I'm going to go right into screen sharing. So just let me know if you can see this image. Yes, okay. And I was going to do a short meditation, but I think Reverend Dr. Janet already took care of that. So we're just going to get right into it. But just think of yourselves as these beautiful, beaming, radiant spheres of light, and that your light goes out into all dimensions and all realms at all times. Distance is no factor. So tonight, being as Topos, initially the title can be a little difficult, but it's actually a really cool title because Topos has to do with a level or a field. And what it means in tonight's presentation is as you elevate your spirit, you actually represent that level. And at that level, you're radiating the quality of your being to all creation. We don't tend to think that way because we don't tend to think of energy on higher levels having a radiatory effect. But the sages speak of this. And we radiate what we represent on a spiritual level 24/7. Doesn't matter whether you're thinking about it or not, or conscious about it. So as you continue as a spiritual seeker to awaken yourself, you then go to these different levels of beingness, and that definitely has an effect on the constellation of your relationships, and such that you can be drawn to spiritual teachers who have awakened in the spiritual dimension. You feel where the light is great, and you're attracted to that person or those people or that church or institution. And we take a psychic relationship to all our family of relations. And that means that everyone is intuitive. Everyone is intuitive. But for many people, they may not have cultivated their intuitive faculties, but they're all working. So as we take a psychic relationship to our relations, we could do so by reciprocity, which means inverse. You know, if you're good at describing things, you might have someone who's good at the big picture. They're good at the big picture, but they're not good at describing things. So we can get into what are called reciprocal relationships. And there's also representation through relationship, which means you start being attracted as to like attracts like. So you're a spiritual seeker and you draw the Dalai Lama into your life, and you start reading Universe in a Single Atom. You start to know what a mala is and the Sorig incense. But what you're really doing is taking a psychic relationship to what he represents as the 14th incarnation of himself, and he will tell you that. And the reason some people deliberately reincarnate in this way is because they're broadcasting that topos. They're broadcasting that level of their spiritual awareness in the physical plane, so that we can then take a psychic relationship to what the Dalai Lama has chosen to represent. And then we are definitely affected by that level. But when I was a little boy, there were a couple things that interested me, and some of them were comic books. And in the back of the comic book was usually an ad, either for magic toys or for scientific toys. So I begged my mother, I think for $3 check, to send away for this thing. And it's a scientific device. I think I was maybe 7 or 8 at the time, if that. And basically, excuse me, never have to clear your throat until you start talking. Basically, in physics, there's a law, and it has to do with if you have a coil of wire and you pass a magnet through the coil, it will induce an electric current. Correspondingly, if you send electric current through a coil of wire, it'll make a magnetic field, hence the term electromagnets or electromagnetism. So here you have a coil of wire, and there's a magnet inside on this screw. And when you move the magnet down through this coil, you're actually receiving different frequencies of AM radio. And what interested me as a little boy is that this has no battery. There's nothing to power it other than the electromagnetic waves flying through the atmosphere. So it had a little earphone here, and I put it in my ear, went out to my mom's patio, and I adjusted this screw up and down. Remember, no battery in here. And all of a sudden I'm hearing, and Aurelio Hernandez, the third baseman, just hit a pop fly, and that'll tie it up at the beginning of the 5th, and I'm starting to listen to this radio program, and I'm thinking, where does this come from? How is it I'm listening to a radio program and there's no battery to send the power to this little earphone? Well, I was hooked. So in our consciousness, you and I are a wave of attention in a sea of consciousness. We are a unique transmitter and receiver, and we like to use the word energy. So example, in the old days when we had TV antennas, the station would broadcast a signal, and we had these things called rabbit ears. I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember that, but we had rabbit, and we would adjust the signal. So it was never whether there was a signal, it was whether you could tune into the signal that was there. It's the same thing with spiritual energy. It's never whether there's spiritual energy there. It's whether a person is tuned into it. And different people have different elevations of their own spiritual power. And so this is why we become attracted to them, because they're broadcasting at very big megawatts of spiritual power 24/7. And that's the thing about you and I, is we broadcast our spiritual awareness all the time, asleep, awake, eating, doesn't matter, driving, it doesn't matter. It is what is called a qualitative state of being. So our perception starts to shift as we look into what we see in life. And as the chakras and your spirit starts to awaken, you begin to see things more as they are than as they appear to be. So for instance, there are many people that saw these carved heads of these Maoris on Easter Island, and they thought, I wonder what that looks like. So there was always an extrapolation saying, well, certainly it must look like this, until someone decided, well, why don't we dig down and see what it really is? So when you start digging down spiritually, you start to see things more as they are rather than as they appear to be. And this is what attracts us to spiritual teachers, because they represent that inner spiritual virtue of purity and innocence that we seekers aspire to. That's why we love the yogis, swamis, rishis, gurus, and so forth. So embrace the way that your intuitive faculties work for you. Most people think, oh, I need to see it psychically. I need to visualize it. Well, you might not be a visually oriented person. You might be auditory. You might be empathic. You might just feel it. You might be clairsentient. You might just know it. There's many forms of intuitive abilities, but they all go to the same place. So let go of how you think you must observe it intuitively and embrace with faith the way that you do. It all works. So the only way to overcome an illusion is to first recognize that there is one. So this is a very catch-22 in metaphysics, is how can you know that? It's in the same ball field as how can you live in oneness and be unique? How can you be non-dual and dual? And the great teachers say we have to honor both. We have to honor that we do have a physical body that lives in space-time, but we do have a spirit body that's beyond space and time, but is still unique. So metaphysics is fraught with these dilemmas, conundrums. How do we figure this out? But as we grow spiritually, that ability to begin to see things more as they are and to overcome illusion becomes an empowerment. So many, 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 many years ago, a man or woman sat down and decided that they were going to graph the human energy field, okay? Not the nervous system, but these patterns of energy through the meridians, the chakras, and so forth, which gave rise to Oriental medicine, acupuncture, and so forth. Now, here's my point. Let's just throw out a number. Let's say this was drawn 2,000 years ago. Okay. Now, isn't it true that right now, at this moment, those energy patterns are still there? As you look at each other across your screen of your computers, is it not that it's still there, but we may not be aware that it's there? So this is probably the most powerful screen I can show you tonight, because someone did observe this and decided they would chart it and write it down, but they didn't see it optically with physical eyes, and yet they still saw it because their astral body, their causal body, was awakened sufficiently to be able to observe the subtle energies of the human being, and thus helping people to attain greater levels of health, not just in the body, but in the emotions, the mind, and the spirit. So we know now, and it's more popular to understand, we do have chakras. Chakras have been called the energy centers of the body. That's a little bit misleading, because there are many who believe that chakras are energy like electricity, gasoline, fuel, power, something like that. And that's a part of it. but chakras also represent conduits of consciousness. Think of them as conduits that affect the four archetypes of the whole human being: mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional. All four archetypes are necessary for this incarnation. So this is a more typical view that we often see about the chakra centers. They are numbered 7 from the perineum, where the legs join the body, going on up to the crown. 7 in number. And, there's a lot of misconceptions about the chakras. For instance, in the heart chakra, whenever we go look for a picture of the chakras, inevitably, this chakra is colored green. If you read the Vedas, 3,700-year-old writings, one author might say, well, the heart chakra is a lovely crimson color. Another author said, well, the heart chakra is a lovely cloud-like color. So it's not so much the color of the chakras, it's more about coherence. But most importantly is the chakras are constantly radiating a signature, a unique signature of your being. So think of it this way. This would be you on the higher level of yourself, shining through your chakras to create the physical you that exists in this dimension. So think of this you here in higher levels in the astral causal dimension as the body of the flashlight. And when the flashlight is turned on, the light shines through the chakras and affects these four archetypes. Now, the light is not the flashlight. The menu is not the meal. Okay, so Yogananda talked about this when he said that we see the pictures on the screen, but actually the white light behind the film is really who we are. So years ago, I wanted to write some books about the chakras, and I started observing them in my own perspective as these donut shapes, what are called toroidal energy fields. And it gave my mind a way to understand how the physical dimension and the higher dimensions meet in what is called now. Some people call this place right here the 0 point. Some people call it the God spot. And there's many other aspects to this lecture. I could go in other directions, but just think of the chakra as a conduit of consciousness where the physical dimension and the higher dimension exist in the same point in the same time. In other words, where everything and nothing exists here in the center of all 7 chakras. So if you were to look at it in this way, just a very simple drawing, you have 7 chakras that have this toroidal or donut shape to them. You have these twin serpents of the Kundalini called the Ida and the Pingala. And then you have this pulse of energy shining through the lenses of the chakras called Sushumna. And it's a double pulse going in 2 directions. So where the Sushumna, Ida, Pingala cross is the center of a chakra. And when you take all of that together, 7 chakras, Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna, you get the energy field of the human being, which is the personality, the soul, and the monad, or the physical dimension, astral and causal dimension. And the point I'm making here is that your chakras exist in all 3 levels. In fact, it's the same chakra in all 3 levels. So you have a 3rd chakra, physical, astral, causal, and so on. The other thing about chakras too is that they work in 2 directions. So many people look at the chakras as what you receive. We don't usually think about it as what you send, which is the topic of tonight's lecture, how our elevated spirit affects others. But when you think about it, the reason why we think chakras just receive is because every one of our 5 senses are built on receiving. Your eyes are waiting for photons of energy to come. Your tongue is waiting for a taste. Your nose is waiting for a smell to come. Your ears are waiting for vibration. Your skin is waiting for a sensation. So we tend to think of chakras only as receiving, but you can send power. My students in integrative chakra therapy, they learned how to use the chakras as conduits through which divine power can flow through them and not have to flow only to them. They can become conduits of healing. So typically, the human biofield is considered to have different layers. I make it really only 3 layers for myself, but there's other teachers that can say, well, it has 22 layers or 5 layers or 7. To me personally, it doesn't really matter, but when I'm attempting to teach this in a way that makes sense, I tend to keep it simple so that we don't overuse too many layers of the chakra and then confuse the whole issue. So think of it as the combination of the 7 chakras, Ida, Pingala, Sushumna, creates this biofield, this energy field that you and I used to call the aura, but science seems to think biofield is a much more innocuous term. I actually am a romantic. I like aura much better. But this field holds your 100 trillion cells in this dimension until you don't need it. Then the light is withdrawn from the flashlight, the body decomposes, but the astral body remains in the astral dimension. So the whole system is the biofield at the astral level. So the astral level nurtures and supports the physical body. The causal level nurtures and supports the astral. And remember, at the end, we'll have plenty of time for questions and comments. So please maybe write them down and think about it. But really, we tend to walk around like this. We're radiating this quality of who we are beyond space and time. Yogananda spoke of, as we meditate, our subtle energy vibrations reach all creation. It doesn't matter how big the universe is, because higher level beingness in the astral and causal dimension is not limited to time or space. That's why someone can work, like I have clients on almost every continent, and I can work on them successfully because distance is no factor in this type of work. So in the Vedas, they write about what are called the 3 yoga bodies, or the 3 dimensions of self. So we have a physical body in the physical dimension. We measure space and time. In the next dimension, called the astral dimension, there is no space or time, but there is uniqueness. So right there, we have another problem. We have another dilemma. How can it be unique and be beyond space and time? The easiest way to remember this is think of the physical dimension as one side of the coin, and the astral causal dimension is the other side. It's one coin with 2 aspects. So we have a dual and a non-dual nature. And the causal is even more refined than the astral, but you have a physical body mind, an astral body mind, and a causal body mind. And beyond that is what has been called the Purusha dimension, or the dimension of non-self, in that in the higher dimensions, there are no chakras. There's no need for any kind of chakras. There's no need for a physical presence unless you choose to have one. So anything inside this box experiences uniqueness. So Uncle Joe passes away 2 years ago, and you go to a medium, and the medium says, I'm sensing the presence of this guy, and he was very strict, and he smoked a pipe. You go, oh, that's Uncle Joe. Well, because when you pass on, you take your uniqueness with you. That's called karma. So therefore, you still have a personality in the higher dimensions. And depending on your level of spiritual awakening, you will carry that personality forward into another incarnation. That's another lecture. So the physical body has a strong attachment to the 5 senses, a strong sense of individuation. Male and female are quite different. There are internal glands, organs, physical energy distribution system, including non-physical chi or ki. And the ego is still very much an illusion of self and separation. But in the astral dimension, you have an astral body mind. There's a strong attachment to emotions and desires. There's less of a sense of individuation. The male and female is still different, but less so. There's no internal glands or organs, but still some form of energy distribution system. The ego is still in self and separation. In the causal body mind, there's very little attachment to emotions and desires. There's even less of a sense of individuation and more mind. There's almost no difference between male and female. no internal glands or organs, and so forth. So the astral body is really cool because everything that has a physical body has an astral body holding it in space-time. It may not have what we constitute as a chakra system, the same as ours, but nonetheless, the astral body has no organs, but does have an energy distribution system. And it supports the physical body. And when your karma is complete for a given lifetime, that light from the flashlight of the astral dimension is usually withdrawn from this dimension. So again, your biofield radiates you into this dimension, and it radiates to all creation and beyond that which is created, which means physical and non-physical, physical and astral. So this is why it's so important for all of us to continue as seekers to awaken ourselves spiritually. It doesn't matter if you start thinking about levels, because there really are no levels, but there is motivation to make the effort to develop one's character in a given lifetime. So avoid comparing yourself to others, but focus intently on the divine source within you, and you will evolve at a rate that is commensurate and safe for you. Don't worry about where you're going to get, because Yogananda said one cannot be any closer to God than you already are, but you can reveal that closeness. So as you are spiritually elevated, you are actually revealing through that 95% of who we are is not verbal or physical. It's pure energy. We're radiating that quality of our spiritual self out to all creation. And this is why certain events, sequences, and people come into your life sometimes suddenly, and you go, my goodness, where'd this person come from? They are taking a psychic relationship to what you represent, and you to they. So as your awareness expands, and I don't mean mental awareness, I mean spiritual awareness, there is a collapse, an integration or a merging of the three yoga bodies. So you're not ascending out of your body, and you're not bringing your soul back into your body. You're actually merging these three levels together as one. You are it, it is you. Or as the Hindus say, Tatam Asi, thou art that. So then you start experiencing the unity of all things, leading towards oneness. So it's really cool, because as your perception shifts, so also does your awareness. But if your awareness shifts, you can make a different response or a better reaction through the power of your will. Then you have a different perception. And if your perception is even better and you see things more as they are, that level of awareness will make you, or offer to you, to make a better response or reaction. So as you keep doing this, this is called an evolutionary spiral. As you go through time and space, your awareness expands through better and better choices that you make. So your astral self may be telling you one thing, but your physical self may be offering you something else. So this is where the effects of prayer, meditation, right living, right belief, and so forth, harmlessness, compassion, this is where it really pays off, because your body may physically look like this, but your spirit's doing this. So science has been very interested in the human biofield. And there are devices that have been created that can indirectly measure and then give an illustration of what that energy field of the human being looks like. One of these devices is called polycontrast interference photography, polycontrast interference photography, or PIP, PIP. And here's an example where this software can use any laptop, any webcam, and can illustrate. For instance, if you see these fellows here beginning to do some Reiki with this man, you can see some low energy patterns in his body. So we're living in a time where science can help us understand that our biofield is a real thing. But this is not a physical thing. This was done by means of interference photography to show the energy shifting as they continue to work on this man. It's quite compelling when you start to see the results of what happens when you take these images of people where in some cases the energies are pretty low and some are much better. For instance, fine health versus loss of balance. It's the same equipment, just a different person. So you can imagine if you continue in your path to elevate your spirit, to continue to seek to awaken yourself, what that effect must have on others. Each image reveals different issues in the standard lighting conditions. So again, same equipment, just a different person. So think about this person here, and it doesn't matter where he is. He could be sitting on a rock in Arkansas and still affect all beings everywhere. It's not limited to Earth. It's all creation. And I think from my 34 years of this particular work, that has been a very difficult thing for us to imagine, that the quality of the emanation of our field has no limit. Most people think, oh, the aura sticks out so far. No, because it's in the astral and causal dimension, it does not experience any limitations of space and time. So, excuse me, Topos, remember, a field, as a representation of a level of consciousness or superconsciousness, because we have met teachers who have elevated themselves to superconscious states. There's a wonderful book by Dean Radin, R-A-D-I-N. He is the chief scientist for IONS, the Institute of Noetic Sciences, and he wrote a book called Supernormal. And in this book, he explains how and why people who attain certain levels of spiritual awakening, all of a sudden they develop these powers. But it's normal, and it's not limited to a person. It's for all people. So as you reach a level of awareness, you then represent that level. One day you were a goldfish in a goldfish bowl, and then as you awakened, you realize you're the goldfish bowl holding the goldfish. And one day you realize you're the table holding the goldfish bowl, and on and on and on. And so this is what really happens in the spiritual evolution of the human being, is as we go through that evolutionary spiral, we then represent that level to all creation, not just people, all creation. You then attract people to you and you to them who will engage with the possibility of arising, as you will when you meet others, such as evolved teachers and so on. So there is a term called biological oscillation. What in the world does that mean? What is biological oscillation? It has to do with how two consciousnesses can relate to each other. So this example here, this bird is from the animal kingdom and the flower is from the plant kingdom. How is it that these two consciousnesses from different kingdoms can match each other exactly? How is it that bird beak and tongue fits exactly into that flower, or the flower fits the bird? So the point here is this is happening on every level. And in this case, birds from the animal kingdom, plants from the plant kingdom, these are two consciousnesses working together to conserve energy. And we do it all the time as human beings. But every kingdom does that in order to conform to each other. So two or more consciousnesses merge to conserve energy, from birds and plants to planets and stars. We are constantly doing this in all our relationships with the five kingdoms: mineral, plant, animal, deva, which is nature spirits, including fairies, elves, gnomes, pixies, and that sort of thing, and human beings. But most of us are unaware of that. But again, going back to that one illustration that depicted the human energy system, it's there. But imagine how much more aware we are as we persist and we persevere in our spiritual essence and striving. It's good to make the effort. It's good to make the effort. So we conform to our environment and it to us. So I'm going to give you an example of mechanical oscillation to show how the biological oscillation works. So here you have 32 metronomes that are activated separately, and this takes about 2 minutes. I hope you can see this. Can you hear me as I speak? A fellow by the name of Christian Huygens in the 16th century, among many things, invented the pendulum clock. He found out one day when he put the pendulum clocks on the same beam, they started ticking exactly together. So think of this as a form of biological oscillation in the same way that when people walk into a room, they tend to change their vibration to match that of the person in the room with the highest vibration. As you can see, this clip, you know, as it ends, all 32 of these metronomes are ticking exactly the same. So think about how this happens with you and I as spiritual beings. As we increase our vibration, our frequency, you know, use the word you like, but think of it as attuning and cohering our spiritual power. What effect that must have on all creation. And the second one from the front on the right is going to be the last one. But in the interest of time, I'll go ahead, but just to show you, it does match. They all 32 do match. So I have a theory that one chakra is more dominant than another. Chakras are my specialty. They have been in my research for 34 years. And I believe in one chakra being more dominant, they each have different intuitive faculties, and that it reveals how and why you interact with the people you do. This is one of the books I wrote about that with 27 case histories, but it offers the opportunity to reveal whom to hang out with, offers the opportunity to understand why certain people choose to hang out with you. So you start thinking, well, why am I attracting this person into my life? Well, there's one of two ways. One is called reciprocity, or like attracts on like. Let's say this fellow is more prominent chakra, and dominant chakra is kind of like saying right or left-handed. There's nothing wrong with your non-dominant hand. It's just the one you favor. So let's say this man, throat chakra is his most prominent one. So therefore he can articulate, comprehend, meaning, telepathy. But let's say this woman's second chakra is her dominant chakra. So she sees the big picture. She can look over the horizon. She dreams big. But the reciprocity is, even though this fella can articulate, he can't see the big picture. So he invites her into his life to help him have the passion and to see the big picture. Or she draws him into his life because she's got all these great ideas, but she can't articulate them. Now, let's take that a step further. Let's say they don't know that. Let's say they don't know that they have a chakra that might be more dominant, but that's how it works anyway. That's like saying, I don't know anything about gravity, but I still stick to the planet. So these laws, these metaphysical laws are happening, they are occurring all the time. So if you knew, for instance, what your dominant chakra was, you'd say, okay, I'm throat chakra dominant. I tend to attract people into my life who really want me to help them illustrate the big picture. So as you can guess, there's many different types of inverse relationships, or like attracts unlike, but we do this all the time. And it's not just intimate relationships. It could be familial, sisters, brothers, aunt, uncle, person you marry, extended family. It could be parental, parents, grandparents, children, grandchildren. It could be work. It could be social. It could be any level. It doesn't matter, because people are people, but we still relate to each other psychically long before the mind ever thinks a single thought. So to me, this is one of the ways that our spiritual nature attracts people into our life, and we into their life, for the purposes of the conservation of energy by biological oscillation. I know that sounds terribly dry, but think of it in a more beautiful way, that our spirit is always working to awaken itself, whether we're aware of it or not. But as we surrender to our faith, and faith means trusting with your heart what your mind doesn't know, because one of the last slides is, well, how do you continue to evolve yourself? What is necessary in order to do that? So if you start looking around at your relationships and you say, well, I'm kind of empathic, but I don't always have a strong sense of myself, so maybe it's my heart chakra. And you attract some man or woman into your life that has a strong third chakra, and they have a strong sense of self, but they need to open their heart a little more. So they help the guy to individuate his power, but he helps them to open up emotionally. You see? So this is a very eloquent, beautiful way that divine source has helped us to orchestrate our being by becoming more deeply aware of the subtleties and the beauty of who we really are. Now, there's another form called representation through relationship. And you can see in this image here, it appears that these two fellows have dominant throat chakras. It doesn't have to be the same chakra, but just for illustration's sake, let's say, for instance, it's not about chakras. Let's say it's about golf. And you're an average golfer and you want to be a really good golfer. So who do you go hang out with? You hang out with really good golfers. So you start picking up on some cues. So representation through relationship, if we put it into spiritual terms, we could go back to our Dalai Lama example and say, I really want to elevate the nature of my spiritual awareness. I think I'll start studying with the Dalai Lama, or any man or woman who has elevated their spiritual nature. But it doesn't matter if you're there with them personally. You could be watching a YouTube of that person. You could be reading their book. You could buy their mala or their incense. It's the same thing. We tend to seriously underrepresent the truth of our spiritual nature. We tend to seriously underestimate who we really are. And so if you want to get to that point, it takes a certain ferocity of trust and faith in your own intuitive faculties. And no one can do that but you. So in dominant chakra theory, one chakra might be more dominant than another. Again, I'm very quick to say this is just a theory of mine. But each chakra has specific intuitive faculties, and they're on all the time. They're on in all people all the time. They're never off, maybe not cultivated, but they do color your perceptions and your perspective, like that lens that I showed you. So it causes you, through representation of the relationship, through reciprocity, through biological oscillation, to attract others into your life. So we're going to do a little exercise here. And I'm going to invite you, as you sit quietly, to close your eyes and breathe as though your belt extends down below your belt line. Nothing fancy, just breathe all the way down below your belt line. Breath in and breath out at your own pace. Breath in, breath out. And quiet the mind. And feel yourself in a state of great trust and inner receptivity. And within that, observe or picture your own chakras. It doesn't matter if you know the chakras back to front or if you've only just heard of them. That's not important. What is important is a matter of inner trust and faith in your spiritual being. So as you breathe in and out, allow perhaps one of the chakras to be more present for you. Now, many women have the ability to observe the nuances of energy far better than men. So if you're looking too hard, if you're trying too hard, you're missing the point. Sometimes the softest energy has the biggest impact. Now, as you're breathing down to your belt line, breath in and breath out, feel these beautiful nuances. It doesn't have to be visual. It could be a sound. It could be a feeling. It could be a knowing. And allow one of your chakras to present itself with the possibility of being your more prominent chakra. And now breathe into that feeling that comes with that particular chakra. There is no right or wrong answer. You cannot do this wrong. Breath in and breath out. Breath in and breath out. And now, having felt or somehow observed that particular chakra, just keep that in your presence, in your understanding, and we will talk about that when the slideshow is done, and we'll talk a little bit more about each chakra as it helps you to draw certain relationships into your life. So now, if you would please take a little bit deeper breath and breath out, and an even deeper breath, feeling your body, and breath out, and feel yourself focused, present, and grounded. And when you feel the moment is right, open your eyes. Now, in order to be enlightened, there's three things that are necessary. The first and the most important is a moral and ethical code, because a person can awaken their chakras, but without a moral and ethical code, it means nothing. And then third, and just as important, is faith. It's almost impossible to grow spiritually without faith. This is why I've been doing flower readings for 32 years. This is why I've been putting myself on the line for 34 years doing this work, because if I'm not vulnerable to my faith, why should the people I teach be so? So your faith in your higher sense perceptions is crucial. It doesn't make you right 24/7, but the power of the trust is what's crucial. And lastly, I will send, I think, to Reverend Dr. Janet, or to whoever you ask me to, what is called a circle of light exercise. It's also called microcosmic orbital breathing or Shoshiten breathing. And it's a form of breathing technique that is really balancing to all 7 chakras. So I'm not going to take the time now because it feels like we have lots of questions. But if anybody asks for this, I'm more than happy to send it to you or send it to Janet. She can send it out, however you guys want to work that. But this is an exercise I do every day, twice a day when I can. So let me go ahead and wrap up here and say thank you and bless you on the slides. And then open it up for your questions, your observations, what came to you in your meditation on the chakras.
And I would just offer, Richard, if there is time, I would love to do that breathing
Oh, sure.
exercise and have it be a part of the visual.
Okay.
So if that's possible, if we have
Let's
time, I would.
let's talk about any questions you have, which chakra you felt was dominant, and then yeah, I'm happy to do the exercise, of course.
Well, I guess I might as well throw out the first question. You were focusing a lot on chakras, but what about auras, the body, the aura of the body? It's like, how does that relate to this?
Think of the aura as the combination of 7 chakras, Ida Pingala, and Sushumna, that is the aura. All of those 3 things together is the biofield, and that the biofield is what holds this electromagnetic bodysuit in space and time.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, just so again, this is how I see it.
Mhm, mhm.
Great question.
Thanks.
So I just want to share that when you had us get in touch with what chakra seemed to be the most present or most real, I kind of got it between my heart and my throat. So it's like the thymus area, like right
That is
here.
that is usually referred to as the second heart chakra
Oh,
or the
I
higher
didn't
heart.
know that. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's usually, and sometimes it's accompanied by a birthmark here. It depends on the person. Um, it's not common.
Oh,
Oh,
This is 34 years of spiritual counseling, and I don't see that very often.
thank
So
you.
I wrote a book called
oh,
Eye of the Lotus, Psychology of the Chakras, and it goes into depth about each chakra and its characteristics, higher and lower aspects, and so forth.
Thank you.
Dr. J, this is Gail. You mentioned early on about right belief system. Could you explain a little more, or
What was the terminology?
you said right beliefs?
Oh, right belief. That's a way of saying dharma, Dharma, right relationship, right action,
Okay.
harmlessness, compassion. That's all dharma. It is living in the most harmonious way possible.
I intuit that belief systems are hard to change or difficult to move.
They sure can be. Oh yeah.
I mean, even when you're doing the meditations or other techniques, I just wondered if you had any recommendations on working with belief systems.
Tonight was one of them. Just listening to this lecture and applying some of the things we're talking about will then come up to the belief system and say, okay, is that still true? Because your awareness will shift with a greater level of understanding, comprehension. Oh, what I believed worked for me, but now it doesn't work because I just don't feel that's true for me anymore. So that's a level of coherence to a higher state of being called the super consciousness. That's where that persistence and perseverance came in, I was talking about.
Okay.
I mean, with UCM, that's what it's really all about, right? That's what UCM is. And you have a president now, UCM, whose very last name means God.
So true.
Any other questions or observations? Circulation of light.
I do
Okay,
have a question.
Oh, okay.
you said that we have one chakra that's more dominant. Does that ever change to a different chakra, or is it always the same one that will always be dominant?
It's a really good question. In my opinion, one chakra is dominant for a lifetime.
Okay.
You're free to believe as you wish, but just think that every chakra has the seeds of karma in it. And so different seeds can sprout. So let's say your heart chakra dominant, but your second chakra comes up with some self-validation, self-worth, self-image issues, abundance, things like that. So we can have a chakra that's dominant, but all the other chakras can then have a presentation of a life challenge or the development of one's character, depending on what the karma is in a given lifetime.
Okay. Thank you.
So my opinion is, yes, I believe one chakra remains dominant, but please do your own internal research.
So to start with that, how do you know? Is it a feeling you have for the chakra?
How do I know?
Yes, like how will I figure out which one of mine is more dominant? I think I know what it is because one of them came to mind when you were talking about it, but I don't know for sure if that's the dominant one.
You can read I Can Relate, that orange book that was on the slides that has a checklist in it that you can go through. You can ask people like me what we believe is your dominant chakra, because that's in the spiritual consultation and integrative chakra therapy, that's what I do. I'm happy to give you an opinion.
Okay. So could this be something where everybody else knows, but you don't know?
I imagine that could be true. Why
Well,
am
you
I the
know
only
how-
one that doesn't know?
Right, like-
That's funny.
Well,
I feel like that sometimes. I'm the last one to figure this out.
But
Thank you.
Joan, you said you felt that you knew which one it was. So I would go with that.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
And then from there, you say, well, what are the main features of this chakra that I know of? And ask yourself, do you operate to those features? Like if it was the heart chakra, are you empathic? Are you a deep feeler? Do you feel people before they walk in the room? So everybody has a heart chakra and everybody's empathic, but yours, if your heart chakra was dominant, you would tend to favor that more than the other chakras.
Very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a comment. Two chakras came up for me, mostly just the second one I noticed was getting my attention. And then also there was like a strong pressure right in here. I feel like it's also the sixth one.
There are what are called complementary chakras, or what is called a reference chakra. So sometimes chakras 2 and 6 work very well together, where the second chakra sees the big picture, but the sixth chakra tends to look more up than down. It's more, sixth chakra is kind of like the fifth chakra on another level, even more comprehensive. The Sanskrit name of the sixth chakra is Ajna, A-J-N-A, and it means command. And it means command for a reason. Because as a person awakens their sixth chakra, everything else in your life starts to change. So the thing about the second chakra is it's more connected to the five senses than any other chakra. That's why I call it the visceral chakra. So it could be that if you were tuning into both chakras, that the sixth chakra could help you to be more abstract, out of the box, but the second chakra could say, okay, that's cool, but we have a physical body, we have five senses, feet on the floor, feet on the ground. I know you got all these ideas, so you can have both working in that way. I would suspect, if it were my opinion, that the second chakra might be more prominent than the sixth, but there's no good or bad answer. One chakra is not better than another. The higher chakras are not better than the lower ones. They're just different. But we tend to think hierarchically in the same way we tend to think chakras only receive when they work in both directions simultaneously. Great question.
And may I ask, Dr. J, is there like sometimes connections, like I've heard this and I don't have the full memory of it, but that like our first chakra is connected to our fifth chakra, second chakra is connected to our sixth chakra, third chakra is connected to our seventh chakra in a kind of a symbiotic. I don't know if that's true or not.
I've heard that. But the way I see it is, if all seven chakras were light bulbs, and they were shining down on a table, and I asked you, tell me the difference between the chakras, you couldn't tell the boundaries between the chakras. But because we're human beings living in a hierarchical time-space type of reality, we tend to want to make one chakra cubbyhole. So when I wrote my Eye of the Lotus book, I said, please be careful not to cubbyhole yourself into one chakra, because they're all working. There can be these working relationships between chakras, but this is more how I see it. Chakras are never closed, they're never blocked, but in most people, the chakras are dormant. That's not a bad word, but they can be strong, weak, excess, deficient. And the reason I say that is because I have to give my instructors and my practitioners some kind of nomenclature to describe what's going on with the chakras, so that they can say to the person, this chakra is doing this, and this is what it means, and here's what you can do about it, and here's how to go about doing it.
I have another question.
Yeah,
So
sure.
chakras are not blocked. They could be dormant, because sometimes I think that my chakras are blocked. And so if that is not possible, then does that mean they're dormant?
In most people, again, you're listening to my opinions from my own research. I deliberately did not read Anodea Judith and Carolyn Mace initially when I wrote my books, because I really wanted it to be my own research. I'm very careful to say these are just the way I see it. So in most people, the chakras are dormant, but that is not a bad thing. Your intuitive faculties are on 24/7. They're never off, ever. But in most people, they've never been cultivated. So when you start saying things like what I've given tonight as a lecture, most people would say, I have no idea what this guy's talking about. No clue. And rightfully so. Maybe they don't need to know, but they're still spirits, they're still beings, but maybe in this lifetime, we really want to understand among us more about in depth what a chakra is. But to me, if a chakra was closed or blocked, you wouldn't be here. There'd be no emanation of your physical presence in this dimension, because there's no chakra to radiate it. The light is off. But I use nomenclature so my students have some kind of framework to be able to describe phenomena related to the chakras affecting the four archetypes.
Thank you.
It's very cool. It's very cool.
It's interesting for sure.
Circulation of light. You want to go to that? This is called the Shoshuten breathing method. So a couple of things. One is the breathing is a form of pranayama. Pranayama literally means breath retention, in that classically you be holding your breath longer than you're actually doing the breathing. So like, maybe a 4-count breath in, then hold for 8, then a 4-count breath out, hold for 8. So it can be whatever you want. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be, So you divide the breath into 4 parts. Inhale, hold, exhale, hold. Whatever that is for you is just fine, okay? So there is an energy that can come for men up the back of the spine from the perineum where the legs join the body, up the back of the spine to the top of the head, and then down the front. For women, just the opposite, up the front of the body, top of the head, down the back. Not a hard and fast rule. If you're a female and it comes up your back, fine. If you're a male, it comes up the front, doesn't matter. It's just generally it works that way. Either way, fine. So what you do, and we're going to practice this, okay? But I will illustrate. So for me, I feel that it comes up my spine. So when I breath in, I'm bringing that energy up from my perineum to the top of my head, and I breath in. And then when I reach the top, I hold for a moment. Then I breath out. And as I breath out, I let it go down at its own rate. I never push it. I just let it go down all the way to my perineum. And when I get to my perineum, I hold briefly, and that's 1 cycle. So we're going to do 7 cycles. When I do this for myself, I usually do 35 breaths because it's just, we're all different. But for me, that feels how I do it. So right now, please, if you could just breathe, just close your eyes and breathe. And as you're breathing, it doesn't matter whether you bring it up the front of your body or the back, just whichever one feels natural to you. And we're going to do 7 breaths. And here we go. Breath in, bring the energy up. Top of your head, hold briefly. And breath out. Let it go all the way down to your perineum. Hold. Breath in, bring the energy all the way up, 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 up to the top of your head. Hold. And breath out. Let it float down on its own all the way to the perineum. Hold. Breath in, bring the energy up. All the way to the top of your head. And hold, pause there. Oh, and breath out all the way down to the perineum. Hold. Breath in, bring the energy up on the in-breath, nice and deep, all the way to the top of your head. Hold. And breath out. All the way down on its own. Hold. Breath in, bring the energy all the way up, gently, lovingly, fully, top of your head. Hold. And breath out, all the way down to the perineum. Hold. Breath in, bring the energy all the way up, 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 up. Top of your head, feel it at the top up there. Hold. And breath out, all the way down, going on its own speed, its own level, no pushing. Down to the perineum and hold. Last one, breath in, bring the energy all the way up, 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 up to the top of your head. Hold. And breath out. And at the bottom of your breath, just begin breathing normally for a couple of minutes. Feeling the effects of the energy. feeling the power of your breath and your spirit, tuning into your true self, feeling your intuitive powers being honed and sharpened and refined and cultivated, feeling the presence of your guides, masters, guardians, protectors, angels, archangels, feeling whole and complete. And when you feel the moment is right, open your eyes. How did you enjoy that?
It's beautiful.
I noticed on the last breath, I had filled up my lungs, but the energy hadn't gone all the way to the top of my head, it had gone to my neck. And it's like, I have no more room to inhale.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a beautiful meditation, and really the talk has been fascinating. I want to thank you. It's been incredible.
Well,
Yeah.
my pleasure.
You know, I believe what is magical about this is that the confluence of all of us that are in this particular meeting at this particular time, I feel a resonance. It's like reverberating with all of you here that you've helped us to create, Dr. J. You know, just that resonating, and I feel it resonating out to the world. It's like just taking this moment to be here intentionally and learn the power of it. Yeah.
Easy to underestimate.
Yeah.
It's just why we do what we do. Any other questions or observations?
Yeah, I have another. It was really interesting what you were saying about how we radiate through all dimensions, and just those pictures of the of the energy fields, and the differences between healthy and unhealthy. I don't know if I have a question. It's just really interesting to look at that, and really, yeah, like I'm always taught that the aura is like 3 feet out, and I still feel that, but also just that it's like this light, it's this shining light that can be seen into other dimensions, and the consciousness of that light is perceived, possibly in other planets. I mean, it's just like really amazing.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it. And you take from this what resonates with you, and what doesn't, you don't need it.
Well, I just want to double back on what you said, Dahlia, which I thought was very powerful. And that is we can understand it intellectually, but by us gathering together to actually feel that resonance, reach out
Yeah.
to a global and to beyond, to really a universal, and I'm struck by the fact that we're named the Universal Church, right, of the Master. And it's like
Mhm.
that resonance is like universal. So it's even beyond this world. And to
Mhm.
experience that limitlessness, that infinite, capacity that we have to make a difference. And I know for me, Richard, that's what's really come up, in just bearing witness to your talk today. It's like the infinite quality of it, that we have the potential to influence it just by our beingness. It's
Yes.
not so much about what we do or don't do. It's our beingness that resonates that.
There was a fella that was in What the Bleep Do We Know, William Tiller, who was professor emeritus, Stanford University, created the Tiller Foundation, and he created these devices called intention imprinted electronic devices. And they look about the size of a cell phone. And he figured out how to make a device that generates 1/1 millionth of a watt and could be programmed with intention. So under laboratory conditions, he would have imprinters telepathically imprinting these devices, like, say, for instance, raise the pH of water by 1 point from neutral to slightly alkaline. And time after time after time after time, it did so. So now there are scientific white papers that have already been written that show the power of intention does affect material matter. And my university, California Institute for Human Science, of which I'm a part of, as you probably know, we are beginning to take over the Tiller Foundation imprinting devices. In fact, I'm on an imprinting team myself. And we just imprinted a device to check that it does raise the pH of water, not whether it will, but whether our new team of imprinters like me can do this. But my point to you is, what is imprinting the device? Telepathy. Telepathy. Abilities you all have. The power of intention held by the emotions works. It is real. It is not airy fairies. It is not rainbows and unicorns. It is a fact. This is why my spirit has led me to be a part of CIHS and the different things. So the idea I have is that when I learn about these things, then I share them with you. And hopefully, you will share them with somebody else. Hey, the Tiller Foundation has these white papers that scientifically show that intention is real over and over and over and over. How many times do you have to prove it before somebody says, well, yeah, I guess it works? you know. So it's not whether it works, it's whether you have awakened to it. Thank you, Jan.
That's wonderful, Jan.
So we go back to that first image tonight of the human energy field. So as you continue your awakening, your seeking, please assiduously follow it. Follow your heart. It cannot lie to you. Don't compare yourself to anybody else. Just you follow what's in your heart, and you'll be just fine.
And I
Yeah.
love the way that Gail is touching. That's quite beautiful. Just that movement that you did. I wanted to comment on it.
Mm-hmm.
I could feel it. When you did it, I could feel it. So
And I'm happy to give you guys references. If you want to write to me and ask me questions, I'm happy to share everything I know with you. If I can help maybe point you in a helpful direction, I'm happy to do so.
that is such a gift, Richard. Thank you so much for
Sure.
offering us tonight, but also offering us that further connection.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
I'm just interested. Are there any other reactions? Did anyone have um, a revelation that came after the meditation? I'm a Gemini, so we're nosy.
I didn't have any revelations. I just have such a wonderful sense of peace, though, and that's really important to me, because there's a lot of anxiety producing things out there in our culture, so it feels really great. And I love getting connected with that energy with the chakras. I personally don't take enough time with it. And when I do, it just changes everything about me. Yeah.
That's exactly what I was looking for, Patty. That's exactly what I was looking for. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a big awareness.
Yeah. It's too easy to get distracted with life responsibilities and news and all that crazy stuff when really it's not the reality. I just saw a video today of a woman talking about her near-death experience. And one of the things that she witnessed when she was on the other side, they were doing surgery on her, and she did flatline for about 2 minutes, but she was over on the other side, and they were giving her lessons, and one of the things that she really realized and witnessed was that that is the greater picture of who we are as a soul, is when we were away from the earth, away out of our body. We're here for whatever it is our soul needs to evolve into. But it was such a profound experience for her, that to experience that lifting off. And she said she used to be very involved in politics and all these other things that really kept her grounded. And that's not her focus now. Her focus now is love and compassion, and how can she help others. And it was really a lovely reminder of why we're here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank everybody for the opportunity to sit with you tonight and to share. I'm very grateful for the existence of UCM and that it continues as a powerful force to help the global human society to continue to awaken.
And, just to add to that, we need all of your unique energy to build that band of energy and frequency. So every precious bit of you is what's needed. We need it all. You're very, very precious. And it's just such a reminder. Thank you, Dr. J, because it's such a reminder of that and how we can make a powerful difference. As Patty said, by being in peace. If we can get to that place and just radiate that, that's huge. That's huge. Yeah. And thank you for doing the research, Dr. J. I mean, thank you for exploring these different dimensions and ways of thinking that you have done to enable us. Thank you for writing the books. I've got a couple of your book titles down because I think that's sometimes the way that I know I can absorb it. If I see it, if I hear it, and if I touch it, those are ways that I can grasp it, that I can claim it. So I believe for me, I need it all. I need to hear it. I need to experience it.
Yeah,
I need to
I'm
see
happy
it.
to do the work.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions or thoughts or reactions or meditations on what we've been experiencing tonight?
Yeah, so me again. So yeah,
Love it.
just like from an intellectual perspective, like I was mentioning, like radiating out through the universe, but then I was talking with someone the other day about just showing up. So this is like just more from the intellectual perspective, but it just it is showing up in a good state. And I know I always struggle with like I feel like I should be doing something, you know, like saying some stuff to people, figuring out what to say. Uh, I don't know, just like filling up space or and
Hmm.
it's like it's okay if it's just Dahlia there. You know, like I sell jewelry at a market on Saturdays. So I talk to lots of people, but it's like just showing up and just smiling, you know, just smiling at people and welcoming them into the booth. I don't have to fit. I think I don't know if other people feel this way, but sometimes I feel like I have to fill up space by saying
Hmm.
something or doing something, or is it okay to just be being? What I feel like is from, I guess, what really struck me from those pictures of the energy fields is that it's enough just to be really radiant and and actually if I'm the most radiant one in the room, and then people are going to match towards me, and that's why I'm a minister and a yoga instructor and stuff, is I want to be a guiding light for others. So it's like it's yeah, like I don't have to fill up space by trying to be more than what I am. I guess that's the way to summarize it.
That is so beautifully said. Yeah, it's like the beingness versus the doingness, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the perennial issue for a lot of folks that I mean, girlfriends that I talk with and such is am I enough just as I am?
Yeah.
I know we
Yeah.
are, uh, but then when I look at it from an energetic perspective of shining that light, it's like, yeah, there isn't words involved in the five senses, but from that perspective.
It can be a lot to take in. You know, stuff that I've researched for so many years is easy to talk about, but if it's the first time you're hearing it, it can be a much like that book, Eye of the Lotus, is definitely not a read at once book. It may take a few times to kind of absorb it. It's not that it's, you know, anything other than kind of deep insights into how the chakras work, in my opinion, and why it's worth it to awaken them.
Hmm.
But you have to be willing to come up to your fears and to recognize it's not whether you're powerful, it's that you're powerful. And that's where the distractions that you mentioned today are very effective at keeping us off our center. And we must work a little bit better at avoiding these distractions.
And in avoiding the distractions, one of the ways that it really helps me, and I'll just own this for myself personally, is when we get together for these speakers series, it's like an oasis. I'm imagining that I'm
Yeah.
on an island and I'm in an oasis where we are free to talk about and acknowledge all of the dimensions of what are going on. And it gives me a chance to, okay, let's just take a breath. And let's just be here and let us feel the wisdom flow. I get this image of the infinity. It's flowing from each of us and to each of us and from each of us. And you've created that environment for us, Richard. Tonight you've brought us a feast that we probably can't all we can't all digest it, but
it works
all at
both
once.
ways. Maybe next lifetime I'm sitting where you are and you're sitting where I am. Who can say?
Right. Joyce C., I see that wonderful smile.
Yes, I'm sort of here. I had an experience, and at first I wasn't too sure if I was going to share it or not. And I don't remember the number of years, but my brother Booker T passed on. So I am sitting here, and he comes in, and he wanted me to realize that whatever is happening in my life will clear up. He brought me a simple teaching that I was to know that. He brought me this energy teaching. And that to me was really rather remarkable, because he and I had a close relationship in the physical world, but he has not left me since he left the physical world as we know this one. He is still in my life from time to time. And so this was very affirming with everything that we were talking about, looking at this chakra, how we can work with our chakra to help to bring balance and stability, and so many more other treasures. And then to have him tell me that I am to realize that I am going to be just fine. That my journey that I am on is a good one, and that everything that I am seeking to do is still good. That includes my writing and all those kinds of things. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Were you done?
Uh-huh.
I just wanted to add one more thing. As I was listening to Joyce talk, one of the things that you brought out was about faith. And I just really want to acknowledge that and thank you for that, because sometimes when doing some of this work, even with these chakras, things, imbalances do come out, and it's kind of, it's unsettling sometimes. And so, so it's really important for me to maintain that it's just a clearing, and that the faith is there, that it's all going to be just fine. But I think that it was really great to hear that, having the faith. So
Yes.
thank you.
Crucial.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is really
Yes.
crucial. Yeah.
Yes.
Yoga without faith, just stretching. Prayer and meditation without faith, just thinking. Your reach must extend beyond your grasp.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to say something. I was in my 20s. I've shared this before, but it'll be quick. I was studying UC Santa Barbara, a double master's program, and working 2 jobs, kind of tutoring and things like that. But I needed something to keep me focused. So the songstress, Aretha Franklin, the song was Respect. And that song, I played it 3 to 4 times because it was on the little 45 thing, I played it. I would get up and go play it, and I do a meditation, and I do that 4 or 5 times. In the morning, I would do it 4 or 5 times. And then I would go through my day and achieve everything, because the mantra and the message that was going through my entire body was respecting myself. Because I was running up against some very difficult professors and things like that, And so I respected myself and succeeded. Things succeeded the way I wanted them to succeed. But I just wanted to share that was one of the first times that I discovered that to do something like that is life-changing. And I have not forgotten. You know, I have not forgotten the gifts that can bring to you when you feel and you believe, you know, and I did, and I still do.
Wonderful.
I still do.
And that's perseverance, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
persistence.
Yes.
And faith.
We live in what's called a co-creative conscious collaboration. That means that our spirits are working full time to collaborate with each other, whether we're aware of it or not. That's what's happening. We call it biological oscillation or some other fancy word, but it's actually quite simple. The uniqueness of our spirit is reaching out to have those encounters and relationships that will benefit our growth.
Ah. Yeah.
It's a co-creation. You and divine source working together to create the events in your life with the possibility of growth. Because you are divine source.
And Ms. Aretha,
Hey.
I think she was there and is there for a lot of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And is always there, even though
Always.
she has physically died. She is always there.
Well, there are certain things that do not leave. We can call it lights, sounds, frequencies, or what have you, whatever the special words would be that I do not have. But I do know that I hear her within my consciousness. I see her singing, doing her thing, respect. And I can tell you, it's taken me through a lot. You know, it's taken me through a lot. That particular energy has helped to connect with what is called my chakra and the energy field around me. It helped me to bring in the energy I wanted, and it helped me to cleanse myself of what I didn't. Someone else's negativity. You know, so there's a lot in my life to be said that when I am working with energy, I work with energy to help me to transform and cleanse and to get rid of things that I do not want in my energy field. And that helps me a lot. You know, it helps me a lot.
I really want to thank you for that reminder. I call them comfort anchors, right? You know, comfort anchors. Who can be a comfort anchor?
Yeah, it's a good name for it because it works. We just have to remember to do it and believe in it and feel it, enjoy it, all those words that we've been hearing today, whatever time it is, where everybody is. And it was a very powerful teaching for me. And it was an incredible reminder. The reminder was for me to not to forget who I am. In the face of the world that I live in, do not forget who I am, that I can reach my goals. Don't forget that and apply myself accordingly. Yeah. So anyway, thank you very much, Dr. J.
You are most welcome.
It was an incredible talk. It is safe to say I've never known what you were going to say. But when you say it, I'm going, okay, then. Okay. It's amazing. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Most welcome. My pleasure.
It's just wonderful. I feel like I'm basking in an ocean of wonderfulness. You know, and I would offer my friends that, you know, let us continue this conversation reach out, let us continue. And in fact, next month in September, we are actually going to have what we call West Coast Eileen Wong, and she's going to be talking about Qigong and her journey towards Qigong and how she found it's a very wonderful art that she has, embodied in her life, and very much like you, Richard, has brought her wisdom and brought that to us. And so join us for, that next series.
What is the date?
The date is, and I'll tell you right now, it is September 10th.
Okay.
September 10th from 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm so sorry. Thinking we're going to make it low, maybe 5 to 7 for Dahlia. Because it's 9 o'clock East Coast time. But I want to invite you, make a donation to, our wonderful UCM, community. Richard, one of our past presidents, who knows the power of it. He's giving of his time and wisdom and energy to this. And, I just want to thank you, Dr. J, for all that you do in the world every day and all that you bring just by your presence.
Thank you.
We're so grateful. And for each and every one of you, all that you bring to the world, that you've taken valuable time out of your life to be here. Yeah.
It's been great. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, thank you for this time together.
Yes.
Absolutely. Any last thoughts or questions or anything before we wrap it up? I think we're feeling happily full. Dr. J, happily full.
Happily full
Good.
of
A lot to.
Good.
yes.
Mhm.
So, yeah. Wonderful.
Okay, I'm going to end the recording right now and wish you all to do your homework assignment, which is to do something bad and decadent that has no socially redeeming value whatsoever, but it's something that just pleases and makes you happy.
Ah, all right.
Thank you.